Warning: the following podcast contains mentions of graphic violence, pandemic, sexual assault, physical and psychological abuse, fascism, xenophobia, homophobia, racism, religious fanaticism, and terrorism. Listener discretion is Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Guy Fawkes and his companions did the scheme contrive to blow the king and parliament all up alive. 70 barrels laid below to prove old England's overthrow. But by God's providence, him they catch with a dark lantern lighting a match. A stick and a stake, for King James' sake. If you won't give me one, I'll take two. The better for me, and the worse for you. A rope, to hang the Pope. A penn'orth of cheese to choke him. A pint of beer to wash it down, and a jolly good fire to burn him. Hallo boys, make the bells ring. Hallo boys, God save the King. Hip hip, hooray. Welcome, my Anglophiles, to Beauties and Beasts, the podcast of all things Beauty and the Beast. Alright, I'll cut the English accent here. I'm DF, and what you just heard was an Old English verse from the 19th century, which my British listeners may be familiar with, and know the significance of the 5th of November, also known as Guy Fawkes Night, kind of like England's 4th of July. Marks the foiling of the Gunpowder Plot in 1605, when Guy Fawkes and his Catholic companions attempted to blow up Parliament, but were caught in the act. Oh, and got our first donation of 1 gold bean from Fizzy Dizzy Doggos, saying, "Great intro, thank you very much. I do love portraying my British accent." Anyway, why did you think that Guy Fawkes wanted to blow up the government? Well, it's because this was a time when the Catholics of England were persecuted, favoring the Protestant church. And please note, as someone with a Catholic mom and a Protestant dad, the English Reformation is very difficult for me to talk about, because if my family had lived in this period, we would have been in a whole lot of trouble with both the Catholic and the Protestant faith. Yeah, let's face it, every religion's been persecuted at some point in history. But anyway, Guy Fawkes was executed for his crimes, and so the English have a tradition on the 5th of November to build bonfires burning the dummies of Guy Fawkes, or wear Guy Fawkes masks, and also fireworks. Alright, and another gold bean donation from Fizzy Dizzy Doggos. I should be learning about this on school soon. Yeah, you probably should, because today, ladies and gentlemen, is the 5th of November, so it's really appropriate I should be talking about this today. But there has been debate over the last 4 centuries or so whether Guy Fawkes was a villain or a hero. And if he'd succeeded in blowing up Parliament, would it have been a good or a bad thing? But why am I going on and giving you a history lesson? You're all here for a Beauty and the Beast story. Well, this information is important in the movie I'll be discussing today, the 2005 film V for Vendetta from Warner Brothers, based on the graphic novel series from DC Comics by Alan Moore and David Lloyd that ran from 1982 to 1989. I will be discussing the movie mostly, even though writer Alan Moore really didn't like the changes that the movie made. But the thing is, the movie packs much more of a punch rather than the story taking place in 1997, it takes place in the 2020s. And you know what? Guess what? The fictional 2020s created in the 2005 movie is not too far off from the 2020s that we are living in now. On top of that, this story has a Beauty and the Beast plot. So, first of all, I'd like to thank my $5 plus patrons. And one of them is in the chat right now. Bella Savage, me and Fizzy never saw this, so this will be good to hear. Okay, well, spoiler warning up ahead. I'm going to be spoiling the entire plot line. Yeah, and it is rated R, so that whole warning in the beginning, yeah, this is a pretty dark movie. I'd like to thank my $5 plus patrons: Anime Guy 1101, Arvin Joshua Rocks 15, Bella Pink Savage, Cosmic Trail, and Tyrannosaurus Venom. As always, thank you for your continuing support. And remember, patrons get early access to new episodes, private live streams, song covers, my mini-series Writing Beauties, and they get to vote on future episodes. The latest poll winner will be announced at the end of this stream. Or if you want to support my podcast in another way, you can buy my merchandise on Redbubble. The Halloween season has come and gone, so the winter holidays of giving are upon us. I have lots of holiday merch available, including Christmas tree pride flags, which have been updated for face masks, including new fitted masks. Okay, and Anime Guy 1101, one of our patrons, just said, I literally just punched out of work, so I just popped in to say hi. And Cosmic Trail says, I watched this movie the first time in freshman year 3 years ago, academic years in my history class. Rewatched it Tuesday for this episode. Yeah, not to mention last week, it was available at AMC for a limited time. I guess AMC had the same idea. So, going with the tradition of this podcast, 10% of all of my November and December earnings from merchandise, patron pledges, and live stream gifts will be donated to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. In this COVID-19 pandemic, lots of kids' wishes were put on hold, but for some of these sick kids, their time in Earth is very limited, and the time to get their last wish it's not a lot. The world is crazy right now, but we can try to make sure at least some sick kids get a Merry Christmas this year. So either go to patron.podbean.com/beautiesandbeasts to pledge as a patron, or click the Become a Patron button, or go to disneyfanatic23.redbubble.com to buy my merchandise. Just buying a sticker or a pin button will be a big help. You will notice that I made the stream public instead of private as usual, because this topic is so related to the political situation in the USA, and apparently the election is still not over at the time I'm recording this. So I wanted to leave the discussion open. Also, I was really hoping the election would be over by now, but I guess it's not. So yeah, we're just gonna do it right on the 5th of November. And as Bella Pink Savage says, roses are red, violets are blue. I'm sick of this election, and I know you are too. Yeah, I'm sorry to get political on here, but you can't talk about V for Vendetta and not get political. I'm sorry, guys. So, I'm leaving this open to other viewers who are not patrons. The minimum payment for any questions or comments you want read aloud is 1 gold bean, unless you are a patron of at least $1 a month or more, and then your questions and comments will be read for free, provided that they are relevant to the topic at hand. Alright, so anything that's not related to the topic, please save for the end of the stream, okay? So, in V for Vendetta, it's the 2020s in England. And due to an epidemic called the St. Mary's virus, named after the school it began in, the Chancellor, Adam Settler, takes extreme measures to stop the virus, such as implementing a curfew, executing protesters and rioters, and eradicating the godless people who caused the virus that God had sent for judgment. Gays, immigrants, blacks, essentially anyone who isn't a straight white Christian. So, Britain is run by an overly religious, homophobic, xenophobic, racist, essentially white supremacist dictator in the midst of a pandemic. Oh, and America's in a civil war, most of them dead. Just replace Adam Settler with Donald Trump and you've got 2020 America. Now, see, the graphic novel was written in the 1980s when the Soviet Union was a threat, and author Alan and Moore didn't like how this movie emphasized American values over the theme of fascism versus anarchy in England. Well, I hate to tell you this more, but the movie predicted 2020 a lot better than your graphic novel predicted 1997, considering the Cold War ended before then. Anyway, it's the eve of November 4th in London, and a young woman named Natalie Portman, Evie Hammond, is on her way to meet her boss for a date, but it's past curfew. So why did you still go out if you knew it was dangerous? She's stopped by fingermen, which are pretty much the new law enforcement in town, and they attempt to, well, rape her rather than turn her in. Police brutality. Police exerting their power over people who are weaker than them. Yeah, another checkmark for 2020. And this music is not appropriate. How did this get here? How did this get here? Let me get rid of this music for a second. Okay, bye. There we go. Anyway, she's fending them off with pepper spray and then is rescued by a man in a Guy Fawkes mask who calls himself V, who has a flair for fencing, Shakespeare, and alliteration, using just about every V word in the dictionary in like one sentence. Yeah. She introduces herself as Evie, and he laughs at the coincidence. E-V. V. Yeah, this movie is chock full of coincidences. And yes, V is played by Hugo Weaving. Thank you for pointing that out, Cosmic Trail. And V helps Evie up and asks if she likes music and offers to show her something wonderful. Yeah, go with the alliterative masked lunatic who just killed your rapists. Better than waiting for more fingermen to show up, I guess. He takes her to a rooftop where they can see the Central Criminal Court of England and Wales, locally called the Old Bailey. He takes out a baton and dedicates this tune to Lady Justice, who has been mocked by this government. Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture starts playing all over the street speakers, and as V conducts, the Old Bailey explodes into fireworks. This act of terrorism angers the head, or rather chancellor, and orders the song to be blacklisted, and that the media pass the event off as a planned demolition, that citizens not to be alarmed. A really great line from one of the news people is, "Our job is to report the news, not fabricate it. That's the government's job." So yeah, next time you say fake news, media is not to blame. I'm talking to you, conservative kiss-up Fox News. And Fizzy Dizzy Doggos sends a 1 gold bean donation for A for self-awareness. Yes. Evie works at the news station as a production assistant, aka coffee girl. She apologizes to her boss, the talk show host, Gordon Diedrich, for missing their date last night. Meanwhile, the Chief Inspector, Finch, has analyzed the footage of the explosion and ID'd Evie. He learns that her parents were political activists, her brother was at St. Mary's where the virus had begun, and as the police go to arrest Evie, V infiltrates the TV station, holds everyone hostage, and broadcasts his message reminding everyone of November 5th, and claiming that everyone is guilty of the government's crimes because they did nothing and just let him take power. So, 1 year from this night on November 5th, he will fulfill the ambitions of Guy Fawkes and blow up Parliament, and ask London citizens to join him and take a stand. The cops arrive. V manages to escape by dressing hostages up in masks, but one cop nearly sneaks up on him from behind. But Evie pepper sprays the cop, but she is knocked out. The Chancellor orders that the media cover up the incident, showing footage of one of the masked hostages being shot by the police, and they declare V dead, but very few viewers buy it. Covering up only made the government even more untrustworthy. Evie wakes up in V's underground lair, where he keeps contraband, books, and art. She tries to leave, but he says she can't, as the police are looking for her. She screams that he should have left her alone. I'm sorry, but would you have rather he left you to be arrested / possibly executed, or even earlier to be raped? Do you really fear isolation over your own life? How stupid do you have to be? Oh, wait. 2020. Right, I get it. So yeah, this is like a Beauty and the Beast situation. But it's for her protection rather than like a punishment. The next morning, Evie wakes up to find V cooking eggs in a basket, or bird's nest as my mom calls them, humming to The Girl from Ipanema in an eerily domestic fashion. She sees his badly burned hands, and he explains that there was a fire. She apologizes for getting angry, and then they bond over Shakespeare quotes. Apparently, Evie had wanted to be an actress before the virus. She asks if he really thinks blowing up Parliament will solve anything. He calls it justice, and the building is rather a symbol. What matters is how the people will respond. People should not be afraid of the government. Government should be afraid of their people. Real powerful quote there. So, V and Evie play house for a while, but revenge is still number one on V's list. He assassinates a TV host who honestly really deserved it. Think like those Fox News anchors that really annoy the heck out of you. He spat bigotry on the media, and he was so narcissistic, he watched his own show while in the shower, watching himself while washing himself. Ugh. Back at the lair, V watches his favorite film, Count of Monte Cristo, with Evie, another tale of revenge from which V obviously got his fencing talents. Who says movies don't teach you anything? Evie says she liked the film, but felt sorry for the heroine Mercedes, that Edmond Dantes had cared more about revenge than her. Foreshadowing? Cosmic Trail, very weird to do. I assume you're referring to the shower scene. Yeah. The TV switches to the news, announcing the TV host's death as a heart attack. But Evie knows that her studio ID is missing, and she figures out what V did. She reprimands him for killing that guy. Though, are you really surprised? I mean, he did kill your would-be rapist too, after all, and you didn't really bat an eye then. Though, I will say, implicating Evie in the crime by using her ID, that's something to be mad about. But yeah, don't cry over an egotistical bigot's death. V declares a justice, and Evie asks, who are you to decide that? Fast forward a bit, Evie, in a sudden change of heart, asks what she can do to help and tells the story of her parents. Her father was a writer who said that artists use lies to tell the truth, while politicians cover them up. Geez, this film is just full of powerful lines. As an artist myself, I can attest to this. When her brother was claimed by the virus, the parents had joined protests. They were arrested by the police in their own home, very brutally, and she, at 12, was orphaned. She's sorry she's not a stronger person, like her parents, that she wants to stop being scared all the time. Enveloping savage, oh, that's awful, yeah, it is awful. V enlists Evie's help in his next mission, using her acting skills. Evie disguises herself as a child prostitute to infiltrate the private quarters of a pedophilic bishop. Despite him being a hypocritical sleazebag, Evie warns that V is coming to kill him. Of course, he just thinks it's foreplay. You know he's a pedophile! Why would you warn him? V breaks in, learns that Evie betrayed him, and she runs away. But instead of coming after her, V goes and kills the bishop. Cosmic Trail, why is it that it's those bishops or priests? I don't know. Look, as someone from the Catholic faith myself, it is. I don't like talking about it. It's just there will be religious leaders who abuse their power. Really, doesn't matter what faith you're in. There will always be those people who abuse their power. And that's the point. Not all bishops and priests are like that. Like, I've known really good priests in my life, and the Pope is wonderful. Yeah, the current Pope anyway. Yeah, there's a lot of distressing topics in here, so there might be, and I might have an occasional pause, because there's a lot of crazy stuff. Anyway, so Evie runs to the only friend she can think of, her boss, Gordon Diedrich. It turns out that Gordon doesn't approve of the government either, and he has a secret room of contraband himself, just like V, including a Quran, even though he's not Muslim, and gay erotica. Yeah, he's gay in this movie, unlike in the graphic novel, where he was actually Evie's lover, and there's this whole love triangle thing. Stephen Fry, the actor, actually came up with this idea as a defender of gay rights himself, and a critic of the government. And Gordon says, "You wear a mask for so long, you forget who you are beneath it." Yeah, I can relate, Gordon. As a biromantic asexual woman, I relate. V's next victim is a coroner who used to be a doctor, and she, after seeing his calling card with a special rose, is actually expecting him when he arrives. She's very calm about it. She apologizes for her crimes, and he is merciful enough to grant her a painless death. Chief Inspector Finch finds her journal detailing her time at Larkhill Detention Center, where the dead TV host used to work as a commander and the bishop had worked as a priest. The doctor thought she was helping the country, but really, she was killing people. And the man from room 5, or rather V, the Roman numeral 5, grew stronger from the treatments, from some cellular disorder, and he couldn't even remember his own name. How that when Larkhill caught fire, he rose from the fire like a demon. So yeah, that's where all the burns come from. The Chancellor tells Finch to hush up about what he's read and keep it out of it. And we learn that Finch's own mother was Irish, an immigrant, and was taken by St. Mary's. So Finch's loyalty to the government is questionable, especially with him asking questions about Larkhill, which seemed to have its records completely wiped. Even the chief inspector is kept in the dark of the government cover-ups, and he's starting to question about what's right and what's wrong. Meanwhile, Gordon does a skit of political satire on his show, a kind of Saturday Night Live style, in which an actor portraying V is unmasked by another actor playing the Chancellor, and it's revealed that he's also to be the Chancellor under the mask, and then the fake police force shoot them both. Risky move, Gordon. Why are you not worried about open political farce against a totalitarian government when you've got a Quran in the basement? Surprise, surprise, he's arrested, and Evie tries to escape, but she's then grabbed by an officer. She wakes up in an interrogation room, and her shadowed interrogator demands that she tell him the location of V. She refuses. She is then tortured, her head is shaven, and she's thrown in a cell. Through a hole in the wall, she receives messages of toilet paper from an actress named Valerie. Valerie, another V? Telling her biography of the women she had loved, of how she was shunned by her parents, how her and her partner were arrested and sent to Larkhill Detention Center, not understanding why people hated them so much, why people are so cruel. Why can't people just be allowed to love whom they love? I'm sorry, this part hits home a little too hard for me. Yeah, thank you, Bella, I'm okay. Evie is told she is to be executed by a firing squad, but Evie says that she is without fear. And the warden says, "Then you are free." And he leaves the cell door wide open. What? Evie walks out, sees that the sentry guarding her is actually a dummy, and walks down the hall, which leads right into V's lair. He'd been behind it the whole time. He had gotten to her before the police. Sadly, Gordon had been executed for having a Quran. Evie goes ballistic. V had tortured her for weeks, months? I mean, yikes! He says it was so he would rid her of her fear, like she said, and that it was hard for him to do it. God, man, don't justify this. She's traumatized. Yes, Bella Pink Savage, what the actual hell? Then Evie breaks into overly dramatic panting and gasping and screaming that Natalie Portman is famous for. Okay, I gotta say this. One thing I don't like about this movie is Natalie Portman. I don't know if it's her acting or the roles she's cast in, but I've yet to associate her with a character I've actually liked. I have the same problem with Jennifer Aniston. Hottest woman in the world? I don't get it. Anyway, that little rant aside, despite V's questionable methods, they actually prove effective. Now that Evie's essentially faced the worst that the government could do to her, she isn't scared anymore. So, yay? But Evie still cannot bear to be around V, understandable, and prepares to leave. V does not stop her, but first shows her his shrine to Valerie, the actress. The story had been real. Valerie had written it to V at Larkhill. She'd been in the cell next to him. He'd gone through the same horrors he'd put Evie through, and that story had given him the strength to fight as it had given Evie. V says what they did to him was monstrous, and Evie responds, "Then they created a monster." She leaves, and V has an emotional breakdown. At least he gets that he can't keep her any longer. Meanwhile, Chief Inspector Finch has been digging into the Larkhill conspiracy, knowing that all the victims had worked there at one point. He gets a tip from one of the old employees, and he meets him at the St. Mary's Memorial, which is a Ring Around the Rosie statue. Fitting. The informant then tells him the truth about Larkhill, that it was essentially a concentration camp, where they had tested the St. Mary's virus, which they'd created, on undesirables before unleashing it as a bioweapon. And they'd released it within their country rather than in the neighboring countries to stir up fear. And then they blamed it on their enemies. And when the Chancellor came into power, he released the only cure magically within the first few months of power. So, the government created the virus, tested it on non-white straight Christians, non-straights and non-Christians, then released the virus and blamed those undesirables, saying that it was an act of God. And then the Chancellor gains popularity for curing this virus. They use the fear of the pandemic as the ultimate tool for control. Yeesh. At least we know COVID wasn't engineered by the government, though some are still blaming the Chinese for it. People are scared, and so they look for someone else to blame rather than accept the reality. Yeah, I'm kind of scared to read some of the comments responding to this. Yeah, I see you guys are kind of horrified. Well, Finch is horrified, but then he learns that who they thought was the informant had actually died years ago. That it had been V in disguise the whole time. Months pass, and chaos is brewing in the state of London. Guy Fawkes masks are anonymously sent to every household in London. Oh, Bella Pink Savage, what the hell? I'm actually shaking. Yeah. People are rioting, robbing stores, graffitiing V's symbol, and they're wearing the masks. So people are protesting and rioting in masks, albeit for different reasons. And then, someone makes a mistake that really sets everything off. One little girl who was just graffitiing while dressed up as V is shot by a fingerman, and the people stand up and fight back against the police. So, an unarmed innocent is murdered in cold blood by the authorities, and the people revolt. Sound familiar? Like shown in the film, one event sets off another, a whole chain of events. like dominoes, all put into place, and then they fall. Cosmic Trail. Very, very bad move, cop. Yeah, albeit this was about a little white girl, but still. Just one little mistake can set things off. So, we skip to the eve of November 5th. The big day has arrived. Evie returns to V's lair. She's been hiding out, and he's missed her greatly. She plays a song on the jukebox, and they share a dance. Evie says he's an important person in her life, and yet she knows almost nothing about him, hasn't even seen his face. He stops her from taking off his mask, and says there is a face under there, but he's no more that face than he is that mask. Pretty much means it doesn't matter who he was, who he is now is all that matters. Above ground, military forces are surrounding the Parliament, expecting an airstrike. Chief Inspector Finch is concerned for the protesters who will inevitably show up. So what will happen? What usually happens when people without guns stand up to people with guns. Yeah, I could tell you guys. Yeah, Bella Pink Savage. Oh, damn, that hit hard. Yeah, a lot of this is hitting home right now. V leads Evie to what's left of the London Underground, which had been shut down a while ago after St. Mary's, and shows a subway car full of bombs. He says this is his gift to her, the choice of whether or not to set the bombs off. That she was right. It is not his choice to make. It belongs to the people. V then says that he has business to attend to, which he may not be coming back from. But Evie wants them to leave together, and then she kisses his mask, and he whispers, "I can't." V meets up with the leader of the Fingermen, who he had threatened that the Chancellor would probably throw him under the bus if something goes wrong. So, if the head of the Fingermen gives V the Chancellor, then V will turn himself in. The Chancellor is brought, all bound and gagged, and V kills him, but he refuses to go quietly. Is that really a surprise, given how he is? V uses his swords against their guns, and Finger Guy is like, "How are you still alive?" "I'm full of ideas, and ideas are bulletproof." So he kills all the cops and takes off his bulletproof vest. But he's been shot at so many times, it's only stunted the impact somewhat, and he's fatally wounded. V makes it back to the subway, bleeding. As Evie holds him, he whispers that he had fallen in love with her, and she says, "I don't want you to die. That's the most beautiful thing you could have given me," are his last words. Evie lays his body on the subway bomb car and as an honorable funeral pyre. She's about to push the button to send the car on its way, but Chief Inspector Finch appears and tells her not to do it. But Evie is not afraid anymore. The country needs more than just a building. It needs hope. Up above, the police are overrun with a flood of people in masks. Guy Fawkes masks. They ask what to do, but the people in charge, the Chancellor, the head of the Fingermen, they're all dead. And no one's around to give orders, so they don't shoot, and they just let the crowd pass. Finch allows Evie to send the car off, with V's body, and it blows up Parliament. Evie and Finch go up to watch the fireworks. And Finch pretty much asks the same question that Cosmic Trail just put. Everyone in my class kept saying, "What does his face look like?" Well, Finch asks, "Who was he?" And Evie responds, "He was Edmond Dantes, and my mother, and my father, and me. He was all of us." The protesters then remove their masks as they watch the fireworks and listen to Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. And we briefly see the faces of the dead to show that their legacy will live on. So yeah, one hell of a movie, huh? First, let's talk about the main relationship. Clearly, this was inspired by Phantom of the Opera, with a masked villain taking a pretty girl to his underground lair, though he's really not as possessive as the Phantom. If you thought it was problematic with V torturing Evie, he was apparently a lot more abusive in the graphic novel. And, oh, get this, Evie was a 16-year-old prostitute. Also, V was more of an anarchist and less selective about who he killed. And in my opinion, less sympathetic and relatable. I mean, we want to root for this guy to succeed, even through questionable means. The movie presents him as an anti-hero, which is how a lot of people view Guy Fawkes. Can't really decide if he's a hero or a villain. Well, he's really both. Alright, and Fizzy Dizzy Doggos for One Goldbean says, "Thank you for punching me in the stomach multiple times with the quotes." Yeah, I did give you a warning. This movie was pretty heavy, and it's relating a lot to now. Yeah, definitely packed more of a punch when I watched it like just last week than it did when I watched it a few years ago. Because we know we're living in this time right now. I do love how V and Evie, though the relationship is a little problematic, parallel each other as characters. From the opening scene where both are at the mirrors and getting ready for the evening, and it's like they're on either side of one mirror, to V being reborn through fire and Evie being reborn through water, not to mention their names, Evie. And yes, V torturing her to rid her of her fear was questionable, but at least when she decided to leave, he didn't stop her. Probably why he doesn't choose to start a new life with Evie. Revenge or no, he's aware of how monstrous a person he is, which is why he's not afraid to die once his mission is complete. And though Evie is heartbroken by his death, she lives to carry on his legacy, and will continue to fight for the people and what is right. And in the end, she had helped V realize that this whole plot wasn't just about his need for revenge, but so everyone could have justice and freedom. And she made him feel loved in his final moments. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm saying that you guys are saying it's a lot problematic. Yes, it is, but believe me, if you read the graphic novel, it's a lot worse. Now let's address the elephant in the room. 2020 came true, for the most part. Pandemic, albeit a manufactured one in the movie. There is a curfew implemented, which actually in real life is for our safety rather than government control. Police brutality, riots and protests. People wearing masks, but for different reasons. And white supremacists in power, albeit in the USA rather than Britain. Which happened because a great number of people decided to do nothing. They didn't vote against Trump, or at all, rather. And if he wins this election because you didn't vote, or you voted for one of the extra parties you know never get elected, it's all on you, because this race is very close, and it shouldn't have to be close. Oh boy. Yeah, you guys are saying that you hope he doesn't win, and it did trigger the future. Man. Yeah, I get why we're still counting votes now, because the deadline for mail-in votes is November 10th, and there was a whole pandemic, and this was probably the safest way to vote. But this week has undoubtedly been incredibly stressful. Yeah, so shout out to all my fellow Americans out there. Oh, Bella Pink Savage, yeah, my state has yet to confirm. Okay, well, I know there's at least 5 states that haven't confirmed yet, so that narrows it down. Oh boy. So sorry, Alan Moore, but this futuristic 2020s holds more water than your 1997 nuclear war than... Yeah, just remember that the graphic novel was written in the 1980s when everyone was freaking out about the Cold War and Soviet Union. Different decade, different values. And Cosmic Trail, my state is confirmed. Yeah, my state is confirmed too, the one I live in and my birth state. I will say, I am glad that at least those two went for Biden. But was this movie really a prediction? Or was it just a depiction of history repeating? Remember, this isn't the first time we've had a plague, or white supremacists in power. As the Brits did in this movie forget about Guy Fawkes Night and the Reformation, so did our Americans in real life forget the Holocaust that we fought against. Larkill was this film's version of Auschwitz, filled with not just Jews, but gays, racial and ethnic minorities, all the undesirables, as they called them. And with Mexican immigrants being kept in cages at the border, kids included, we're not far off from repeating the actions of the German Nazis in the 1940s. Yeah, Enveloping Savage, what's scary is that it all came true years later in America. So I don't think V for Vendetta intended to predict the future, but warn us of what the future could be like if we don't learn from history, which is exactly what happened. Yeah, I see someone trying to call in. I only reserve call-ins for $15 plus patrons. Sorry, guys. Or people who donate at least $15 within the month. Yeah, the pandemic in the real 2020 was not planned, sure. But so many other things that happened this year could have been prevented. The pandemic causing civil unrest, police murdering unarmed civilians, civilians fighting back, a significant political event happening in November that could change everything. We dismiss our history as, America was supposed to be the country that we came to for freedom from our oppressive leaders, no matter where you came from. Fighting to keep that freedom and freeing ourselves from a very oppressive monarch, only to allow oppressive leaders back into power. We just keep repeating the same mistakes, and we forget where we came from, what values our country was founded on. At the time I'm recording this, the next 4 years are definitely uncertain. But I pray that we won't be living in V for Vendetta for much longer, and that our oppressive government will, figuratively, explode into fireworks of hope. So, now that I've gone through all of this, questions or comments, guys? Minimum 1 gold bean if you're not a patron. And, okay, so we got, I forget how much a cup is in gold beans, but a coffee cup from Fizzy Dizzy Doggos, and hold on, okay. I can think of a few things that wouldn't have been avoided, but still, this is why we have history class. Yep, there was no way to avoid the pandemic happening, but what we could have done, we could have worn masks a lot more, we could have taken less risks, not gone to the beach when it was clearly closed. We could have taken fewer risks, we probably wouldn't have as many deaths. Okay, okay. I see a lot of comments just spring up, and for some reason, my up arrow is stuck. Yeah, guys, wow. Enveloping Savage says, anxiety intensifies. I just want this election to be over with already. You're not alone there, Bella. You're not alone. Like, no matter what side you're on, I think everybody, it just wants this election to be over. Oh, man. Okay, yeah, Cosmic Trail. I hope not. I hate to live in that era. Yeah, I would not want to live. I don't want another world war, that's for sure. But there were things we could have done to prevent what happened. Like, if police had more sensitivity training and not have done all that to, well, not just black unarmed citizens, but unarmed citizens in general. Just, yeah. This movie, it definitely hits home in 2020. Okay, Enveloping Savage says, well, I hope you're all doing as well as you can during this time. Yeah, that's That's what I can say. If there are any more questions or comments, remember, minimum is 1 gold bean unless you're a patron of at least $1 a month. Because, wow, this really hits home, I have to say. And you know what? Yeah, after going through, analyzing this whole movie, it's pretty heavy. Especially when you realize that we are living in this time now. And can I just say, for your sake, that I hope those of you whose votes haven't been counted yet, that it's towards the right person. I hope. That's all I can do right now. Yeah, Cosmic Trail. This movie hit me a little when rewatching it on Tuesday. Okay, and now Fizzy Dizzy Doggo says, and gives another coffee cup. Have a cup of coffee, you deserve it. I might need one later because holy crap, I am shook. I did give you guys a warning at the beginning that this was going to be a heavy episode. A lot of heavy topics. So, unless you guys have some more questions or comments, I will announce the next episode of Beauties and Beasts, which was voted on by the $3 plus patrons. The Studio Ghibli film based on the book by Diana Wynne Jones, Howl's Moving Castle, and that one's a lot more cheerful. Oh wait, but that one also deals with war. Okay, well, still a bit more lighthearted. Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle, where who is the beauty and who is the beast is up to debate. And this episode will be released to the public on November 19th, streamed privately for $10 patrons a couple days early. Yes, this time, because there's no distressing election for me to worry about in the next 2 weeks. Hopefully. So, if you want to support this podcast, become a patron, buy my merchandise on Redbubble, and remember that 10% of my November and December proceeds will be going to Make-A-Wish. So, any last minute thoughts from the chat here? Okay. I see there's a big conversation going on about everybody being worried. Like, take heart, guys. Stay safe out there. And whatever happens in the next few days, America, promise you won't stop standing up for your neighbors, and you won't let the legacy of those who lost their lives to give us our freedom die. Ideas are bulletproof. Even when the person dies, the ideas live on. Thank you for joining me today, and hopefully when I join you next time, it'll be a new day.